Are there relationships that can ruin your life?
I don't trust myself at all. It's super weird. On one hand, I don't give a damn, and on the other, I want to scratch her face with the eyeshadow.
Your self-esteem, your confidence, your dreams, all of that can be ruined by opening the door of your heart to the wrong person. This is exactly what happens to Lucy in the series Tell Me Lies, a show that has hooked and stirred up a lot of people. Not just because of the drama or the sex or the betrayals, but because it touches on a very specific wound, the wound of loving someone so much that you end up betraying your own perception. But a lot of people see Lucy and think, how can she go back to Stephen over and over again?
You don't want us to do it? Fine, then be consistent.
How does she not realize or see the obvious? How can she be so stupid? But those aren't the right questions. The right question, rather, is what has to happen inside a person for her to interpret pain as a bond and to always return to the arms of the one who treats her the worst. So in this video, we're going to analyze Lucy's psyche. What leads her to lose herself in such a traumatic bond? Because Lucy is not that perfect, completely innocent victim. If you haven't seen the series, this video has spoilers. If you don't want to watch, I'll summarize the plot for you. Let's begin. Lucy is a clear example of how a person doesn't have to be stupid, weak, or deserve something bad to end up trapped in a traumatic relationship. She can be sweet, generous, kind, intelligent, strong, and still end up losing herself because of complexity. When Lucy arrives at college, she's not a dark or twisted girl. She comes full of hopes, motivation, eager to make friends and to study. She is very clear about her dream of becoming a writer, and apparently she is a pretty healthy and normal girl. But only apparently, because in reality, Lucy arrives at college with a deep emotional crack. Her father was sick for many years, and the day he was dying, she happened to be alone with him. Her father wanted to say goodbye to Lucy's mother, and she was calling her on the phone, but her mother didn't answer or say what she was doing. Well, later on, Lucy found out that her mother was sleeping with her father's best friend while he was dying.
Oh, James, hi. What are you doing here?
I'm sorry, I should have called.
No, it's fine. Many people come by here.
This completely devastates Lucy, because not only has she lost her father, but she's also lost the image she had of her mother. She loses her sense of security, she loses trust in others, she loses her innocence, and she also learns something very dangerous, that love can go hand in hand with betrayal and disappointment. This will greatly impact her psyche, as she learns that someone meant to care for you can fail you in the worst way. And that the greatest pain sometimes has to be swallowed, dealt with alone and in silence, because this is how Lucy faces this trauma. She keeps it to herself and doesn't tell her mother, she doesn't talk about what she has seen, she doesn't open up that conflict. She carries it on her shoulders so as not to break the family even more and not to hurt her mother. Even though her mother is the cause of that pain, here we can already see a very important trait of her personality. Lucy has a great difficulty facing pain, conflict, and uncomfortable truths.
Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. No one will find out, I promise.
She prefers to avoid them, postpone them, keep them to herself, stay silent, and she prefers to remain in ambivalence in relationships. Loving someone you hate at the same time, protecting someone who hurts you at the same time. And this is very key, because if Lucy had faced her wounds, her traumas, her difficulties earlier, much of the later spiral wouldn't have been fueled so much. All of this comes from not facing your own discomfort, from avoiding it, from emotional immaturity, and yes, partly also from cowardice, from not wanting to face what hurts. A good example of this pattern that Lucy already has is the relationship she has with her high school boyfriend. Lucy is with him, but she's not in love, she doesn't even enjoy being with him, but she stays there for a while. Doesn't this already tell us something? That Lucy, even though she's not a bad person, tends to stay in ambivalent relationships to avoid connecting with her emptiness and discomfort. In a way, there's a use of the other person, not in a deliberate, dark, or manipulative way, but as an avoidance mechanism.
I think I ordered enough food for 6 people.
And you can see this throughout her entire time at university. Every time she feels rejected, abandoned, and empty, she turns to the company of other guys. Lucy loves her mother, but she hates her. Lucy has a boyfriend, but she's not in love. Lucy wants the truth, but she avoids it somehow. Lucy doesn't just arrive at university wounded. She also arrives with a very dangerous fantasy. The fantasy that this time, she really will be able to become someone. Since she couldn't save her father, she couldn't prevent his death, and she couldn't prevent that betrayal. And of course, when Stephen appears, so dark, so wounded, so mysterious, so difficult, a part of Lucy not only wants to be chosen, she also wants to be the one to save him. Also, when Lucy meets Stephen, there's something that hooks her very strongly, and it's that it's the first time she enjoys having sex. And this is extremely important because it places Stephen in her psyche as a special, valuable man, as someone desirable, as the first man who truly awakens pleasure and intensity in her, right? For someone with an emotional void like Lucy, intense physical pleasure is easily mistaken for a deep connection, which can act like a chemical glue that's impossible to break away from.
I need the vaccines for India. I just want to have the flights booked and all that, and to know that we're going to see each other in the summer.
What? Not to mention the lesson this imprints on her. Since it's the first time she's truly in love, Lucy ends up believing that this is what love is. Anxiety, pain, uncertainty, ups and downs. And the thing is, Stephen is sometimes there, sometimes he's not. Suddenly it seems like he wants something serious with her, then he can go days without replying to her. She doesn't know it, but Stephen is in a parallel relationship with Diana. And when things are bad with Diana, he turns to Lucy, but when things are good with her, he ignores Lucy. That's intermittent reinforcement. By the way, a few days ago I uploaded Stephen's psychological analysis, so if you haven't seen it yet, really, check it out because it's very interesting. And intermittent reinforcement, we know it gets people hooked. A lot. This generates more and more anxiety, obsession, and the need to win him over in Lucy, because in some way, winning over Stephen also means validating herself and conquering herself.
Should I blame you instead? I'm just saying the sooner we stop talking about it, the better.
Pay attention, because here is one of the most important traps. For the character of Lucy, Stephen is not just a romance. He becomes the stage on which her worth, her self-esteem, her identity, her desirability are played out, and even as time goes by, her sanity. Lucy has lost herself in that relationship and without realizing it, compulsively wants to go back to him. Why? Because her mind seeks to return to the place where she was defeated. Why? And this time, to come out victorious so she can recover. This is what we know as trauma repetition. That's why it's not just that Lucy wants to be with him because she's so in love, hooked, and manipulated. She wants to win him over, she wants to conquer him, she wants him to choose her because she feels that if she succeeds, then she'll feel worthy again. We see how pathological and deceitful this is. Stephen has Lucy's self-esteem and mental health in his hands, and she believes that by going back to him, she'll get back what he took from her. But infatuation and the traumatic bond aren't the only reasons why Lucy is easily manipulated and even ends up manipulating others. There's a very decisive element in her personality and in the way she functions. She has an enormous capacity to feel guilty and is very afraid of hurting the people she loves. Because of this, paradoxically, she ends up causing harm. Because by trying not to hurt others and not facing problems, she falls. What did you think?
I want us to be completely honest from now on. Yes, no secrets. Everything we're afraid to tell each other.
In order not to hurt others, she lies, hides things, and makes things up. And in the end, all of that leads her to make bad decisions, to harm her own life, and to hurt the people she loves most, like her friends. That's why, as the series goes on, many people start to feel a sense of rejection toward Lucy, because she does absurd things, gets herself into trouble, and hurts people unnecessarily. And why does this make her easy to manipulate? Every time something about Stephen doesn't sit right with her, or she doesn't like it, he plays the victim to make her feel guilty. For example, when she complains that they always meet in secret or off campus, showing that she feels like he's hiding her from others. He plays the victim by saying that, since his family doesn't have much money, for him, his way of showing her that she's special is by taking her on dates to nice places. She then feels terrible, apologizes, and gradually stops questioning Stephen. Since she already has such a strong tendency to feel guilty, little by little she starts minimizing her own emotions, she begins to suppress herself and invalidate herself.
Hello, Auntie. Where did you go? I'm sorry, I should have written to you. Stephen and I argued over something silly, but I don't want to talk about it.
So she becomes more and more moldable, more submissive, and she feels more confused about reality. As time goes by, she doubts more about what she thinks, about whether she perceives reality clearly. She even becomes disoriented, suffers from amnesia, forgets things, and loses her joy and sense of purpose in life. And the thing is, she thinks that in order to stay in that traumatic relationship, to overcome that cognitive dissonance, Lucy has to disorient herself, she has to get confused, she has to manipulate herself. Lucy knows things about Stephen that should drive her away, but since she can't tolerate that truth, she reorganizes her perception to stay connected to him. Am I really telling you that such a traumatic relationship can turn a person's entire psyche and mental health upside down? To the point that the person and those around her may doubt her sanity. On top of that, Lucy also has a bit of a savior complex. For example, when she finds out that her best friend's brother has abused her friend, Pippa feels so powerless at the thought that there will be no justice and that people at the university won't believe another victim. She reported this guy, and since Pippa doesn't want to talk about what happened, she ends up making up that this guy messed with her too. This gets her into bigger and bigger trouble, and paradoxically, it ruins her friendship with Pippa, and this is super important.
Crispy. Oh. Crispy. Is it good for the baby? Okay.
Because Lucy doesn't do that out of a desire for attention, or to hurt someone, or take advantage of anyone. She does it because she can't stand feeling powerless, she can't stand injustice, or seeing someone she loves suffer. And since she doesn't have healthy ways to handle these situations, Lucy gets herself into trouble. That's very Lucy. Good intentions, but poor judgment, a good heart, but getting more and more disorganized and with more problems. There's another scene that really defines her, the Hawaiian party on a night out, during one of those phases when Stephen and she apparently are fine and they're dating. Officially, suddenly, and without giving any explanation, Stephen leaves the party holding hands with Diana, his ex-girlfriend, since she has promised him a good career future if they get back together. This is extremely traumatic for Lucy. Imagine if your boyfriend suddenly left without warning and held hands with his ex-girlfriend, saying nothing to you. But what does Lucy do? She stays with her pain, faces it, thinks about it, processes it, seeks help. She doesn't get drunk and look for comfort in the first guy she finds, who happens to be her best friend Bree's boyfriend, and ends up sleeping with him. This is very key to understanding Lucy. Lucy doesn't know how to live with emptiness. She doesn't know how to handle rejection, abandonment, pain. She doesn't know how to stay still in the face of discomfort. As soon as she feels broken, alone, rejected, humiliated, she needs to do something to avoid feeling it, to numb herself, to escape, and then she makes impulsive and absurd decisions. That, besides bringing her unnecessary problems, keeps her from truly connecting with the reality of what's happening in her life. She denies it, avoids it, escapes from it, and that also makes her stay trapped in that traumatic bond for a longer time. That's why I always emphasize the importance of not running away from discomfort, not avoiding pain, fear, sadness, or anger, because emotions keep us anchored to reality and allow us to make better decisions. But even though Lucy has that saving side, has her traumas, and feels a lot of guilt and a lot of fear of hurting others, the truth is that Lucy is not the perfect victim, and she is not completely innocent.
I'm sorry, I don't know how you found out. Did you girls say something to her?
No, she is manipulated by Stephen, yes, but she also starts to manipulate. She is the perfect example of a gray manipulator, and the truth is that most people are not like Stephen. They don't manipulate consciously or deliberately. Most people do it because they can't manage their pain, fear, emptiness, or insecurity any better. Lucy doesn't manipulate to take advantage of anyone. She does it to avoid suffering, and this makes her the perfect victim for the dark manipulator, in this case, Stephen. Because he molds her to fit his needs, brings out her darkest side, and then uses that dark side against her, labeling her as the bad one. For example, going back to the Hawaiian party scene, Stephen brutally abandons Lucy, and when he finds out that Lucy got drunk and slept with Evan, who is not only Lucy's best friend's boyfriend, but also one of Stephen's closest friends, what he does is reproach her, humiliate her, punish her, and use this information against her. This is what's called reactive abuse. I hurt you, I break you, I make you fall apart. You can obviously react badly, you can lose control, you can act out, and then I point it out and use your reaction against you.
We should tell each other.
You can tell me anything, really anything, and you...
Yesterday? Something crazy you haven't told me or something you don't feel comfortable with?
So the serious thing is what you did, not what I did to you before. And this explains why so many victims end up doing things they later feel deeply ashamed of. Not because they're like their abuser, but because they've spent too long living in a state of trauma, anxiety, and disorganization. Stephen manipulates from a place of power. Lucy ends up manipulating from a place of collapse. That's the difference. And this is very important because dark manipulators not only destroy their victims, but in many cases, they also drag them into becoming people who have to stay silent, manipulate, lie, attack. They turn them into bad people. Letting the worst person in the world into your life can not only break you, it can also make you end up resembling them in some ways. That's why, in real life, you'll see couples or close friends, people you know are horrible, and you wonder, how can they be with that person? They're so awful. And little by little, you start to see how that good person who's with that bad person starts to do things that are bad.
Hello.
In the end, all of this keeps deteriorating their self-image more and more. On one hand, because of the rejection, cruelty, and constant mistreatment from Stephen, and on the other hand, because of all the mistakes they keep making. In their studies, in their friendships, in their family, and also with the boys, whom they often use to try to forget about Stephen. And she uses them even though she knows they're in love with her. And the worse Lucy behaves, the less support she receives. The more guilt she feels, the more she thinks it's fair for others to treat her badly. She starts to feel like she deserves it.
I hate that she went to the party alone thinking I was rude to her.
That creates a perfect degrading cycle, which carries over into her sexuality. Because there comes a point when desire, pleasure, and pain start to become linked with the guys she sleeps with. At her darkest moment, she seeks out violent sex, asks to be mistreated, humiliated, called pathetic, and even masturbates to recordings of Esteban insulting and despising her. And this is disturbing but understandable, because if the person you're deeply in love with turns you on through contempt, humiliation, tension, and pain, your body can end up associating pleasure with submission. Not to mention the guilt and low self-esteem that keep taking over her more and more, and that in some way seeks to be punished. There's a scene that, for me, really shows just how far her deterioration has gone. Stephen uses the information that Lucy slept with him, Bree's boyfriend, to torture and blackmail her, to the point where he forces her to record a video saying she made up a sexual assault to get attention. And Lucy feels so guilty and so afraid of hurting her friend Bree that she prefers to record that video, be expelled from the university, and ruin her life.
I was a bitch, okay? Can you tell everyone that I lied?
Before telling her friend the truth? This is really intense because it shows us how far her fear of hurting the people she loves goes, and how far her tendency to blame herself goes. She carries all the guilt. She prefers to destroy her image, her future. She prefers to humiliate herself rather than face the real conflict. That's so Lucy. Have a good time and I love you. To avoid hurting others, she hurts herself. But the lesson is that even though she runs away from hurting others and runs away from reality, she always ends up damaging her relationships and herself. There's a very interesting aesthetic element in the series that reflects how Lucy gradually fades away if you pay attention at the beginning of the series. She wears very light colors, little makeup, discreet, simple, natural, and as the series progresses, she starts wearing darker colors, more makeup, much more seductive. And with this, I don't mean that being seductive or wearing makeup is something bad. But aesthetically, the series wants to show us that Lucy is metaphorically losing her innocence, that she's no longer comfortable being who she was, and that more and more she tries to regain her worth through seduction. It's striking when she meets Max, who criticizes and says mean things to her right from the start. She goes running to try to win him over, and it's with him that she most often maintains these masochistic relationships. Even though the other man is different in each episode, deep down, Lucy is always trying to win over Stephen, because he's the one who has put her self-esteem, her worth, and her sanity in check.
If you tell me.
Don't you want to tell me anything?
Lucy is always trying to win Stephen over to recover herself. In fact, win is a very common word in the vocabulary they share in their conversations. They talk about, you just want to win me over. They talk about, okay, I give up, you win. But for both of them, this means completely different things on a psychological level. When Lucy wants to win, what she really wants is to have Stephen's respect, consideration, and love, so that she can then respect and love herself again. Whereas for Stephen, winning means something very different. It means having Lucy under his control, being able to do whatever he wants with her. And that is Lucy's tragedy.
You already regret coming, don't you?
She thinks they're in an emotional battle, when in reality, they're in a battle for dominance. That's why Lucy can never win, as long as she keeps playing on Steven's board. Because she wants love, while he only seeks power. And here's the hardest part. It takes Lucy a long time to understand that what she has lost of herself, she won't get back through Steven. She won't get it back. By understanding him better, by being a better girlfriend, by being more desirable, nor by humiliating him, nor by winning at his own game and manipulating. The only way to win is by stepping off the board.
It seemed like they were flirting.
And that's why many people get stuck in toxic and abusive relationships, because they feel like they've lost themselves in that bond. They return because the mind thinks that by revisiting the scenario and doing better, they can recover what was lost. But I truly tell you that the greatest victory is to walk away, and I think this is exactly what Lucy takes so many years to understand.
Please, cheers.
Tell me something that the only victory when you face someone like that is not defeating them, it's recovering yourself. That's why, a year later, even though she has a partner, Lucy is still revolving around Steven, to the point that, even though they haven't seen or contacted each other in 5 years, at their friend Bree's wedding, she tricks Steven into going to the pool by saying she needs to see him. And when Steven arrives, is Lucy having sex with her current partner? The mental manipulation is so strong that years later, Lucy is still using her partner to try to win over Steven. Finally, when Steven reveals the whole truth at the wedding, lies and manipulations that the group of friends has hidden for years. By the way, in the next video, I'll analyze the rest of the group members. Steven invites Lucy to leave with him, she agrees, and then he abandons her on the road. But unlike other times, Lucy.
I don't feel like talking about it.
She doesn't break down, she doesn't cry. We don't know if it's because, finally, at that moment, she understands that she will never be able to beat Steven, or if it's because she finally applied the wise advice given to her by Diana, Steven's ex-girlfriend. The only way he'll leave you alone and forget about you is to make him feel like he's won, so he gets bored of you and loses interest. And that's the only way to get rid of a psychopath. If you haven't seen the analysis of Steven, I'll leave it for you right now so you can check it out, because you're really going to like it. And please, if you feel like you have to win a battle for someone to love you, you've already lost. Healthy love isn't conquered, it's lived in. Bye.